Sometimes the love that consumes us most is the one that never touched us. The story you're about to hear isn't about passion in its loudest form, but about the kind that lives quietly, like a ghost inside the walls of silence. She was an ordinary woman. She laughed at small things, cooked her meals alone, and filled her nights with books she never finished. To the outside world, she looked complete, but inside, she carried a hunger she couldn't name. It wasn't for riches, it wasn't for fame, it was for presence, for the feeling that someone was breathing in the same rhythm as her. And then, he appeared, not as a lover, not as a friend, but as a stranger who lived only in the corners of her silence. He was not truly there, and yet, he was everywhere. A neighbor she barely spoke to, a man she sometimes crossed in the hallway, a passing glance that lingered a little too long. For most people, he was no one. For her, he became the echo she returned to every night. It began small, the sound of his footsteps on the stairwell, the way he brushed his hand through his hair, the half-smile he gave when their eyes accidentally met. But silence has a way of amplifying desire. Every moment unspoken grew, heavier. Every unshared word became a weight, pressing into her chest. Psychologists call this projection when we fill the blank spaces of another with our own longing. She didn't know his story, but inside her mind, she wrote one for him. She imagined the way he laughed, the secrets he must have carried, the kind of man he might be in the dark, and little by little, the stranger became a character more real than the world outside her window. Desire, when it cannot be touched, does not fade. It multiplies. It turns silence into obsession. One night, unable to bear the ache, she whispered his name into her empty room, but he wasn't there. He was never there. The sheets stayed cold, the silence stayed thick, and in that silence, something shattered. Not because he left, but because he was never hers to begin with. This is the cruel paradox of human attachment. We can break our own hearts over people who never even touched us. It wasn't his absence that destroyed her. It was her own silence, her refusal to speak, to reach, to risk rejection. When longing has no voice, it becomes a prison. One morning, she woke up and the silence was different, lighter, not because he had come to her, but because she finally realized something. The stranger wasn't real, at least, not in the way she thought. He was a mirror, a reflection of her own hidden desire to be seen, to be touched, to be known without words. And so, she stopped waiting for him. She stopped haunting her own silence. Instead, she began to listen to herself, to the voice inside that whispered, "What you crave from others is first something you must give to yourself." Sometimes the strangers we fall in love with are not strangers at all. They are fragments of ourselves, waiting to be claimed, waiting to be heard. And maybe the greatest love story isn't the one we imagine in silence, but the one we learn to live out loud.